I've got to show you this local road that the council have decided to lay chip bins down on. Look at this. It's one way, so it's uphill only, and it's incredibly steep. it's like 25%, and the council have decided it's a good idea to put these loose chip bins down on it. I might be getting a new bike. Well, it won't be entirely new, but I'm borrowing a Factor for the event around Wales, so I'm looking forward to that. Like, I really don't know what I'm gonna be riding on terrain wise in that event, so hence why, you know, potentially I don't want to take this bike around Wales. One of my favourite ever places to ride my bike is on top of this mountain. Okay, it's maybe not a mountain like what you'd call in the Alps or anywhere else in the world, but it's just got beautiful views, and it climbs right on my doorstep, so what's not to like? Well, you probably can't hear it, but I got a massive headwind, and that's the advantage of living around here. You've got the hills, or you've got the coast, and you get battered by the wind either way. Well, none of these efforts are dignified, and they really shouldn't be anyway. I'm kind of halfway through, 3/4 of the way through a bit of a VO2 Max kitchen sink workout, which I'm actually really enjoying. I've got 2.5 minutes until my final 3-minute effort, of which I've done 6 of them. 3 minutes on, 3 minutes off. The 3 minutes on, well, it's kind of whatever I can manage, to be honest, because this is like my 3rd day in a row of VO2 Max intervals. Why, you may ask? Well, there's a certain benefit from doing VO2 Max intervals when you're fresh, obviously, and also when you're fatigued, because you won't always be required to do an effort this hard when you're fresh. Sometimes you will have to do it when you're tired, but I am still able to dig deep. If I wasn't able to dig deep, I would cut the session off. When you get about halfway through the 3 minutes, that's when I start to sort of, I don't know, like change gears and like try to find a comfortable gear, to shift my body weight on the saddle, like all these little things, and you never really find a comfortable spot. You just gotta sort of grit your teeth and get them done. So I've actually ended up switching this workout around a little. It was supposed to be 6 by 3 minutes, and then into 3 sets of 10 minutes of 40-20s. But I switched it around, and I used 1 set of the 40-20s as part of my warm-up, and now I've just got 2 sets of 10 minutes of 40-20s. I like to mix it up. I don't like to always do the same ones. I like to play around with it. 60-30s I really like, actually, when we're talking microbursts. But you can't really go wrong with VO2 Max intervals. I think, you know, you could talk about power numbers, you can talk about these things all day long, but I always tend to think old school a little bit. If you're breathing hard, if you think you're not able to say, you know, a word or a couple of words to a person you're right next to, yeah, you know you're working. I feel like I've been a little bit quiet on YouTube recently, and it's probably down to this block of training. Actually, in the last 3 or 4 days, I've sort of buried my head in it, and just like been trying to, you know, take over and get them done as best as possible. I actually really enjoy these type of sessions as standalone workouts. Like, I don't have to fit into a VO2 Max phase, for example. That is kind of what I'm in at the minute. Well, not a phase, it's more just a block. Very short block, very intense, a little bit of overload, and then I change focus and I recover. Next week with the ultra endurance event, I'm sort of getting this done sort of well in advance, you know, 10 days before, so I've got a chance to soak it up and recover, and then I can sort of focus on that event. It's always like a balancing act, you know. There's a lot of sort of juggling sessions and like seeing what fits, and it's not always the case where, you know, I'll plan this like 3 weeks in advance, you know, because when I get there I actually need to change things around to make them fit. So a word of caution with, you know, doing back-to-back workouts like this, like you can imagine you put yourself into a little bit of hole when you do it, because, you know, you're digging quite deep on back-to-back days. You know, just remember that you do need to rest before and after, and you have to make sure that you get the quality of the intervals in first and foremost. and, you know, trying to avoid sort of riding any harder, any sort of time around them. Treat them with a lot of respect. And if you are doing VO2 max blocks like this, you honestly don't need a lot of them. Like, if you drip feed them in through the year, you probably only need, like, you know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 weeks in total of your whole training season. Yeah, you can generally put in VO2 max workouts in during your training weeks, but if you're doing a specific block that's very intense over a short period of time, I'd be careful and just be wary about how many times you do that over the course of a year. When you're doing a block, and to give you a little bit of context, how I've done it is I kind of like to structure it so that I get the harder work done like at the start of the block. So if I'm doing like a 3 or 4 day block, you know, the real spicy ones, you know, like the big long blocks, like the 5-minute blocks, the 5x5 minute traditionals, anything like that, I like to do them early, mainly because I'm more motivated, but also because I feel like I can tackle them the best then. And then as I get sort of, well, further into the block, I get more and more tired, I tend to resort to those microburst efforts and maybe mix in some shorter prolonged efforts like the 3 minutes today, and I'm playing around with it and mixing and matching, and that's all good. But it's a little bit trial and error. A top tip would be obviously go into it very fueled, very well fueled, carbohydrate to your friend. The more carbohydrates you consume, at the end of the day, not only is, you know, potentially your workout going to be better, it's going to probably feel easier, if that's even a thing. It'll definitely be it definitely has a knock-on effect. So if you fuel well, say on the first day, you know, it's in the tank, so you can potentially recover quicker, muscle glycogen and everything. You know, you're still going to carry that into hopefully the 3rd day or whatever it may be. I like to do double days. It's a bit of an easier way, a cheat way. No, I'm not going to call it a cheat way, but it's an easier way mentally than to break it up. And also for, you know, those of us that have full-time jobs, it's a lot easier to do a morning session, an evening session, 2 1-hour sessions. Like today, I've done 90 minutes. And you know, the TSS doesn't really tell you the full story of how I feel, but normalized power certainly does. 325 watts normalized in 90 minutes, which considering my FTP is around a 370 mark, that's a pretty tough structured 90 minutes if you ask me. Now if you were to do 2 90-minute rides in one day, and you maybe split it with, you know, 5x5s in the morning and then microbursts in the evening, you know, that's a good way of sort of building up that bank of workouts in a very short space of time. Monday I did 1 session, which was those more sustained blocks. Tuesday I did some microbursts, well, if you call them microbursts, 60-30s on climbs. And then today I've done sort of a kitchen sink 2 sessions in one, so it's a 3-day block. Another top tip is to track these sessions. So one very simple way of tracking how these sessions go in is log your time in zone. I know it's a very crude way of doing it, but you know, at the end of the day, if you're accumulating minutes in around that VO2 max zone, or if you know if you have lab data, if you know that you're in your range, your lactate range and things like that, then you can get even more sort of detailed in terms of logging minutes in the precise sort of power ranges. One session I think is very underrated is like a Strava segment session. So if I am feeling a little bit sort of under the, I don't know, demotivated before I go out to do one of these sessions, and I have like some pretty solid work to get done, then I might just use actual Strava segments, and it will allow me to vary the power, especially if they're uphill. Like varying the power, like there's a lot to be said for just keeping you floating along that sort of effort, that you're producing lactate, it's a high quantity, but you're sort of bouncing up and down that sort of that red line, if you will, on the climb. So you're not trying to sort of glue yourself to one number, you're more sort of floating above and below it, but in a very natural way. And mentally it's quite a, well, is it easier? Again, it's like I said earlier, like, is anything easy? But there's lots of ways of doing these, guys. Just have fun and dig yourself into a bit of a hole, but be mindful about what you're doing, obviously. And you know, experiment, try things, make notes, come back, develop, evolve, and try some more. And we're all learning every single day.